right, class, today we're in section 8.3. And when we look at section 8.3, we're talking about this idea of slope. Now, in pre-algebra, we did a lot of work with slope in section 8.3. So let's review just a little bit. Remember, we saw that the slope of the line is the ratio of the vertical rise to its horizontal run. So a lot of times we said slope, our symbol for slope is M, is the rise over the run, okay? And slope is a constant, and it really tells us the steepness of the line. Now, a couple of little things that we need to remind ourselves from math past. First of all, if my line has a positive slope, well, if my line has a positive slope, it's going to rise right. If I wanted you to describe this the slope of a positive line, we would say it rises right. So it looks something like that. Okay, so the key word there is rise. Now, on the flip side of that, let's say we talked about what the line with a negative slope would look like. Well, when we describe a line with negative slope, we say that the line falls. So if I were to draw a negative slope line on my grid here, it would fall, okay? The negative slope line is like we're going skiing at Big Bear, all right? And so that's our ski ramp. So again, negative slope line falls. All right, so those are just some important things to remember as we go through and look. Now, here's what's going to happen. We're going to have to learn how to graph lines 3 different ways, okay? And if I go to the next slide, there's our formula. Remember, we said slope, and the symbol for slope is M. So slope equals, okay, is the ratio of the rise over the run. Now, if we're talking about the rise, we're talking about the y's. I like to say change in y's over the change in x's. Now, if we're talking about the rise or the change in y's, okay, so if I look at my T-chart here, and I've got my little line over here on my grid, let's pick 2 points. So, okay, so I'm going to pick 1, 4, and let's go ahead and we'll pick the bottom point, 3, 0. So we have 2 points. We've got 1, 4, and we've got 3, 0. So how do we find the slope? Well, if you look at my little formula here, the first point, okay, is x1, y1. Remember our ordered pair? The first, the abscissa, is 1, which is the x value. The ordinate, which is the 4, is the y value. And then I just make my second point x2, y2. So to do the math, we're going to subtract change in y's over change in x's. So y2, we've got 0 minus 4. And again, I like to just remember the back y minus the front y divided by now my change in x's. The back x, which is 3, minus the front x, which is 1. So what do we have here? 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Okay, 3 minus 1 is 2. So if I reduce that fraction, what's negative 4 divided by 2? Yes, my slope equals negative 2. Now remember, because that's a negative slope line, my line should fall. So let's look over here. Do I have a falling line? I do. And so checking that is a very good way to check and see if you've put your numbers in the right place. So the biggest, hardest part about what we're going through now is remembering what to do when. Now, we've got this idea of horizontal lines and vertical lines. Okay, so let's look at our first idea of a horizontal line. If I look at that horizontal line, then let's see what happens here. If I take the 2 points that are listed, okay, we've got negative 4, 2, and we've got 2, 2. And if I plug those in to my slope formula, we've got, this is going to be x1, y1. This is going to be x2, y2. So the change in y's would be 2 minus 2. Over my change in x's would be 2 minus negative 4. So 2 minus 2 is what? 0. 2 minus negative 4, did you see my sleeping man there? Can you wake him up? So this is going to be 0 over 6. Now, what is 0 over 6? Yes, that is 0. So horizontal lines, my slope is 0. And I would just memorize that. Okay, for a horizontal line, my slope is 0. But when I go to do the math and they just give me 2 points, if I get a 0, if the 0's in the numerator, like it is right here, if it's in the numerator, well, 0 divided by 6 is 0, so I have a horizontal line. Now let's look and see what happens if I do the same thing with my vertical line. Well, I've got my 2 points, so we've got negative 2, 5, and the second point is negative 2, 0. And let's go ahead and plug them into my slope formula, x1, y1, x2, y2. And so here we go, my change in y, so we've got 0 minus 5 over my change in x's, negative 2 minus negative 2. Well, what's 0 minus 5? That gives me negative 5. What's negative 2 minus negative 2? Did you see my sleeping man again to wake him up? Hey, guess what? My denominator is 0. What's 5 divided by 0? That's right, it's undefined. Remember, when you get 0 in the denominator, it's undefined. So if I have a vertical line, you could say no slope, or you could say undefined. Either one of those answers works for me. So here's my big hint. When you're doing the math with the 2 points and you get a 0, location is important. If the 0's in the numerator, like it was here, then the slope is 0. You have a horizontal line. You just need to memorize that. But if you do the math in your slope formula and the 0's in the denominator, okay, well, we can't have a 0 in the denominator, so therefore the slope is undefined and we have a vertical line. And that's a really important piece of information to remember as we go through and do these problems. Now, let's go ahead and look at our next slide, and I want you to find the slope of the line through the given points. So if they give me 2 points, then I need to find the slope of that line. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember our formulas up here we've been using. Okay, in the numerator I need my change in y. So it's 0 minus 3, the back y minus the front y. And then I need my change in x's in the denominator, so that's 2 minus 6. Okay, so let's look at the math. We've got 0 minus 3, which is negative 3. And we've got 2 minus 6, which is negative 4. What's a negative divided by a negative? Right, it's a positive. So for number 1, my slope is 3/4. Okay, let's try the same thing with the points given in number 2. Again, this is going to be x1, y1, because it's just the first point. The second point, I'm just going to make that x2, y2. So if I do my change in y's, 5 minus 2, remember the back y minus the front y, and then I need my change in x's. So the back x is negative 6 minus, that front x is negative 4. All right, so we got a sleeping man here to wake up. So if I look at the numerator, we've got 5 minus 2, which is 3. And then the denominator is negative 6 plus 4, so that gives me what? Negative 2. So for number 2, my slope is negative 3/2. All right, now let's go ahead and look at number 3. Let's go ahead and do the math. Use our slope equation for number 3. Well, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and make my first point, x1, y1, My second point, x2, y2. So my change in y's, that's the back y, which is -2 minus the front y, which is 4, over the change in x's. The back x is 3 minus the front x is 3. What's -2 minus 4? -6. What's 3 minus 3? 0. We got a 0. Where is the 0? The 0 is in the denominator, so we could say no slope, or you could say undefined. If it's no slope or undefined, what kind of line do we have? Yep, it is a vertical line. Okay, great job. Now, let's see what our next slide holds. Okay, so now this is a big deal for knowing what to do when on our test and quiz coming up. All right, if they want me to find slope using equations, now got a question for you. What form is this equation of the line? Yes, that's in standard form, okay? So remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So that equation is in standard form. Now they want me to find the slope of the line, finding 2 points, okay? And then using those points in our slope formula. Well, if we're in standard form, this is what we learned back in section 8.2. If I'm in standard form, how can I find 2 points? Well, we can find the points by using our intercepts. Do you remember how we did that back in section 8.2? If I'm finding the intercepts, okay, if I'm finding the intercepts, then what I'm doing is the 0 thing. So if I want to find the x-intercept, remember, I'm going to make y 0. If I make this y 0, he's gone. So we've got 2x equals 6. So what does x equal? X equals 3. Okay, well, we just found our x-intercept. So now how do we find our y-intercept? Well, when we're hunting down y, we do the opposite. We make x 0, Juppie's gone. So now I have 3y equals 6. So what does y equal? Y equals 2. Remember, we made the x 0, and that's my y-intercept. So we just found the 2 points that we needed to look for to solve. We're going to take these 2 points. We've got 3, 0, which was my x-intercept, and we've got 0, 2, which was my y-intercept, and now we're going to put those in our slope formula. Remember, slope is the change in y's over the change in x's. So let's look here. I put the y's in the numerator, so we've got 2 minus 0. Now I need my change in x's, which is going to be 0 minus 3. So what are we going to get? 2 minus 0 is what? 2. 0 minus 3 is -3. So therefore, my slope of this line is m equals -2/3. Okay? A little bit long and drawn out. Just realize if they give me the equation in standard form, if they give me the equation in standard form and they want me to find 2 points and then use slope, that's the job. We find our x-intercept and our y-intercept, and then we use those 2 points to determine the slope. Now, the last thing that we're going to look at in this section is the idea now. Here's the idea. We've got 2 different linear equations. Okay, linear equation number 1 is our slope-intercept form. Okay, slope-intercept form. So this is equation number 1, and we know that m stands for slope. So whatever, and when I get y alone, y equals mx plus b. When y stands alone, whatever in front of x is my slope, and b is my y-intercept. Okay, it's that little constant that's in the back, okay? Linear equation number 2 is standard form, okay? And here it is, ax plus by equals c. So again, we just looked at that. We have something like 2x plus 3y equals 12. Okay, that's in standard form. So you've got to be able to determine what form of the line that Mrs. Burton gives you. If you know what form of the line it is, then hopefully you'll know what to do next. All right, so let's look up here and let's see if I can determine the slope of each line. So when I look at number 17, when we look at number 17, what form is that line? Yes, that line is in slope-intercept form. Okay, how do I know? Because it's got y equals, y stands alone. If it's in slope-intercept form, then let's see, what's in front of x? Oh, we've got a 3 in front of x, so that means my slope in that equation is m equals 3. Let's look at number 2. What form is that line? Did you see that y stands alone? So this is slope-intercept. Okay, if this is slope-intercept form, okay, then we've got to figure out what is the slope. So let's look. What's in front of x? Okay, what's in front of x? And when I look there, okay, I've got a -4's in front of x. So in this equation, m equals -4. But let's look at question number 3. Okay, when I look at question number 3, what form is that line? It's in standard form. Okay, if it's in standard form, okay, x and y are together, stand alone. Okay, so we've got 2 options, okay? And right now what we do is if it's in standard form, then we have to find the intercepts. How do we find the intercepts? Remember, that's the 0 thing. So we've got x and y. If I make x 0, what does y equal? Well, we've got 5y equals 10, so y equals 2. We found our x-intercept. Now we need to go back. Let's find our y-intercept. So that means we're going to make this 0. So we've got 2x equals 10. So what does x equal? X equals 5. Remember, we made y 0. And so there's my 2 points. And so now we use our point slope form. We've got 0, 2. We've got 5, 0. So there's my 2 points. Change in y's. We've got 0 minus 2 over my change in x's, which is 5 minus 0. So we get -2/5. Okay? All right, now let's skip over here. Let's look at number 5. If we look at number 5, what form is that line? Well, it's kind of standard form, but who's missing? Yeah, did you realize A is missing? If I make this y equals -4, what kind of line do we have? Remember, if y stands alone, we looked at that a few minutes ago, then we have a horizontal line. Okay, and what do we know the slope of a horizontal line is? Yeah, so on this one, m equals what? M equals 0, because it's a horizontal line. If I look at number 6, did you notice all we have is an x? So if I get 3x equals 5, and then I'm going to get x equals 5/3, but if there's only an x, if the x stands alone, what kind of line do we have? Yeah, we have a vertical line. And if we have a vertical line, then what's my slope? Well, remember, there's no slope on a vertical line, or you could say it is undefined. All right? So, again, just being able to go back and forth on each one. Now, let's look here. Last thing we need to do is we need to be able to graph. If I give you the slope and a point, how do you graph the lines? Well, if I look at the first one here, Okay, the first thing I need to plot L. Well, it's negative 3, 4. So we start at the origin, and since it was negative 3, we go left 3, and then positive 4, we go up 4. Big, fat, juicy dot. Now, from that point that we just plotted, we need to apply our slope. Now remember, slope is a rise over a run, and I've just got negative 2, so I need to make that a ratio, so I'm going to put that over 1. Now, because my slope is negative, okay, because my slope is negative, do you remember how we described a negative slope line? Yes, we say it falls. So we're going to fall 2, and we're going to run right 1. Okay, so here I am, my big fat juicy dot at negative 3, 4. From that dot, I fall 2, 1, 2, and then I need to run right 1. So there's my big fat juicy dot, and I connect the dots. Now, I'm going to change this over here to make this a positive slope line so I can show you both ideas here. Now, once again, on number 2, we've got to plot our point. Our point is D, so we're at negative 4, left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, down 3, big fat juicy dot. Now, this time, we're going to say my slope is positive 3/5. So, how did we describe a positive slope line? It rises. So, we're going to rise 3 and run right 5. Okay, so from this point down here, negative 4, 3, I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and I go right 5, and that puts me here, and then there's my big fat juicy dot. So remember, when I'm going to graph the line, I'm going to look at I'm going to apply the positive or the negative sign to the numerator, which means rising or falling. All right, you may start your homework.